Now, as executives and leaders of the food industry, you have undoubtedly read numerous articles about the generational differences facing the workforce today. Now, many of you have also spent millions of dollars on revamping your workspaces and investing in technology to address these generational differences. Yet, we still see that employee turnover rates are as high as they've ever been within our industry, and we continue to lose our best and brightest minds to other industries. Why? The answer lies in the fact that we've been looking at these issues all wrong. The challenges we face with employee retention and workplace culture are not about the generational differences. We've had multiple generations in the workplace since the inception of time. They've all grown up with different technology, they've had different life experiences, and the older generation has always said that the younger generation is lazy, unmotivated, and unskilled to take over the jobs of today. Now, the challenge we face with workplace retention and culture within the workplace really goes down to two specific things. And that's what the generations have consistently told us they need. That is a voice in their career planning and transparency to the opportunities within our organizations. Now, many of you within here today got your start in the food industry. Our own USC strategy professor, Dr. Carl Voigt, who is renowned as one of the most brilliant strategic minds in the world, started in the grocery business. But due to our inability to identify talent early enough and our lack of transparency into the opportunities within our industry, we ultimately lost this brilliant mind to academia. Now, today, there's a solution, and that solution is integrated workforce analytics. The technology is here, and what we're asking of you today is to invest in your employees. For a maximum annual investment of $240 per employee, your companies can get an integrated workforce analytics platform that will provide a solution to what every generation has consistently told us they need. Now, our team, Team Human Flywheel, is comprised of Lars Christensen with PepsiCo, Stephanie Zaragoza with Fred Meyers, John Hughes with Myers Group, Kevin Mang with Nestle, and myself, Brian Booth, with Winco Foods. Combined, we have over 76 years of food industry experience. Now, what is the human flywheel? A flywheel is what creates momentum and provides stability within an engine. The flywheel of our industry is the people. The issue we face is that our flywheel has been losing momentum because there's a core misunderstanding of what it takes to attract, engage, and retain high potential employees. In our presentation today, we're going to discuss the importance of early talent identification, explain why career pathing and transparency are vital to our industry's continued success, and explain to you why or how a modest investment in integrated workforce analytics will create efficiencies within your organizations. They'll free up your management teams to develop your high potential talent while creating engagement with your employees that has never been attained before. We need to attract and retain the best minds in the workforce today to help us prepare for an uncertain future that is rich with opportunities. Now, the good news is, based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the food industry is not going away, but it is going to look different. Technology has had substantial advancements over the last few years. You're going to hear about many of these advancements from some of the teams today. But technology also is going to change everything that we do. Now, let's take a look at some of the changes that are going on in the technological landscape to better understand why we need to attract the best employees in the workforce today to propel our great industry into the future.
What can we do to protect ourselves from robot automation?
The CEO explained that machines will replace traditional labor.
This is all about artificial intelligence and how much faster it can process.
Human labor is never going to be cheaper as we get more advanced, and we're just going to have to adjust to that and deal with the results.
Already, Computers use artificial intelligence to easily beat the world's greatest chess masters, recognize faces, understand spoken language, and even compose music. They can do many of the things that we've always thought made us human, and that threatens many of the jobs we've always thought were secure. An Oxford University study predicts that within 20 years, 47% of all jobs are at risk of being replaced by technology. That's over 70 million people. We don't know exactly what the future is going to look like, but we do know this. Millions of American workers, white collar and blue collar, young and old, are about to face enormous, difficult transitions. We're living longer than ever before and will be forced to change our jobs more often than any people in history. We're going to need to learn new skills constantly throughout our careers to keep from being left behind. This revolution in the job market is not coming in the distant future. It's happening now, and it's going to accelerate. It's going to affect all of us, our friends, our families, and our communities. Are you ready?
I want you to ask yourselves, is your company ready for the massive changes happening to the workforce as we speak here today? No one knows exactly what the jobs of the future will be. However, we recommend an integrated workforce analytics solution as a critical first step to navigating the changes coming to the workforce. You may be asking yourself, what is an integrated workforce analytics solution? It simply is a centralized platform to manage the workforce in new and sophisticated ways, from the frontline employee to the boardroom employee. The system will integrate hundreds of variables, such as critical experiences the employee may have gained, training the employee may have accomplished, and also what their career aspirations are. It'll put this all together and be able to make predictive analytics recommendations based on the data and the variables in the system, such as career pathing for employees. It'll be able to provide career paths for every single employee in the organization. It'll be able to suggest areas for self-improvement for the employee. And very importantly, it'll be able to route job postings to the individual employee based on the individual's desires, but also based on the system's ability to predict the employee being successful in a specific job opening. For managers, the system will be able to accurately predict when certain employees are likely to leave. It'll be able to identify areas in the organization that could be problem areas for us. And it'll allow managers to identify high potential candidates early in their career. So let's take a look at what it'll cost to implement this platform. As you heard from Brian earlier, we estimate, based on our research, that it'll cost $240 annually per employee to implement this platform, or about $24,000 for a typical 100-employee store. This may seem like a large number, but when you consider that industry turnover rates at the front line approach 65% annually, and that the average store has turnover costs greater than $200,000 annually, the $24,000 investment is no longer such a big number. Our research suggests that implementing workforce analytics has the potential to reduce workforce turnover very significantly. In fact, the break-even on implementing workforce analytics and on the $240 annual investment only requires a 7% reduction in annual turnover. Our research suggests that companies that implement this platform will actually experience turnover reductions much greater than 7%, and will actually be able to reap cost savings from this platform. So, beyond turnover, the workforce analytics approach that we're suggesting has other significant benefits. As many of you here in the room know, the food industry has historically been the first employer for millions of Americans. In fact, many students, while attending high school or college, work in the industry. Despite the fact that we have first dibs on so much new raw talent, we often miscue on this opportunity. Industry research shows that 50% of new hires in the grocery industry quit their jobs in less than 100 days. We simply must start to identify this high potential key talent earlier in their employment tenure and show them that the show them that the industry can offer attractive career options versus simply being a temporary stop in their employment history. We must start to identify them earlier. Implementing workforce analytics will also allow companies to, beyond identifying the key talent early, will also allow the companies to assess their talent pool and understand fully what their employees' skills are, their abilities, their ambitions, and their aspirations. Having this information available will be critical as we start to embark on filling the new jobs of the future.
Career transparency and knowing what opportunities are available are critical factors in deciding what company you're going to work for. This is true for any generation, but especially those that are just starting out. But is this really anything new? It's a desire to know that your future is secure. A few decades ago, this was achieved through defined benefits or pension plans. You could simply work hard, keep your head down, stay with your company, and you had a pretty good future lined out for you. But those defined benefits plans are a thing of the past, and now we only have our career opportunities and our pathways to get there. Excuse me. So in large, complex organizations, like many of ours here, our career paths and our opportunities are ill-defined, linear, and sometimes uninspiring. You could be a produce clerk to a produce manager, maybe a store manager. Very few will make it to the ranks of a district manager, and fewer will make it much further than that. But utilizing integrated workforce analytics can help us solve these issues. What if that produce clerk is actually working their way through college, on their way to an advertising degree? Is their produce manager actually qualified to help guide them through what that career path looks like? That workforce analytics can solve both issues, where the employee can put that input in there and say, hey, I want to be in the advertising department, and the produce manager can make the connections and support them to get there. But unfortunately, there's a breakdown in communication on whose responsibility it is to define and map out what those career paths are. In fact, 85% of managers say it's the employee's responsibility to define, communicate, and map out their own career path. But 71% of employees say it's the manager's responsibility, and this isn't working. We're here to say that it's both parties' responsibility, and it's up to senior leadership to implement workforce analytics for frontline associates to capture this talent early and show them a future within our industry, because there are so many opportunities. But why aren't we investing in this? Who's here heard the term that millennials are job hoppers? I know I have. But what's changed that? Is it really we're a different generation and we're a different breed, or is it a product of our environment? In 2008, the Great Recession hit, and many millennials, along with other generations, were laid off. But because our tenure was so short, it really skewed the averages, and it's a negative look. But in looking further, the very job natures have changed. 94% of net new jobs created between 2005 and 2015 are considered alternate work. These are part-time, temporary, consultant-based jobs. By nature, they're not permanent. But we have to include them on our resumes. They lend us credibility and speak to our experience, but they perpetuate this image that we change jobs a lot. So let's look at my own resume. I'm 30-ish, about 15 years of relevant work experience, and I've had 10 different companies on my resume. Now, a lot of these moves early on were college relocation-driven, youthful exuberance, wanted to be somewhere new. Relevant companies that I had great experience with were smaller companies, and there weren't really room for improvement or growth for me. So I relocated again, found a great company, stable environment, lots of room for growth, and I was laid off in 2008. Not once, but twice. So I have a lot of careers on my resume here. Luckily, I got picked up by my current employer, Fred Meyer, and I've been with them 8 years, and it's been fantastic. But despite the fact that I have several job changes on my resume, our research actually shows that when you look at where baby boomers were or Gen Xers on the same kind of career path and the same tenure that we have as millennials today, we haven't changed jobs any more than previous generations. So we really need to stop looking at this as a negative on our resumes and instead embrace what a diverse background, even outside industry experience, can bring to the table, and double down on investments and show what an attractive industry this is to these frontline associates. Integrated workforce analytics can help us get there, especially in large companies, because it can mirror what smaller companies are already able to do.
We're here today arguing that it's time we let technology do the things that technology does best as a vehicle to free people up to do those things that technology cannot. I'd like to start by expressing my gratitude for being here today. I grew up working for one of the best independent retail operators in our industry. We operate a handful of locations ranging from Alaska down into Central Oregon, and because of our smaller scale, I was able to communicate my desires to grow within our industry directly into the eyes and ears of those people who could help me along that path. I was working in a small room closely with close friends, and I was able to find a voice to communicate my desires to grow. Unfortunately, my early experiences might not translate for many of the employees represented here in this room today. Many of you are operating from a much larger room. You have thousands of employees spread out across multiple divisions, business units, and even borders. And it's very likely that within your organizations right now, you have a handful of incredibly high potential employees. You could have the next Jeff Bezos, Howard Schultz, or Sheryl Sandberg working for you right now. Unfortunately, it is also very likely that they will be leaving you by the end of this coming year. But there's hope. Our research indicates that they won't be leaving you for reasons outside of your control. It's most likely that they will be leaving you because they did not share that same experience that I was able to benefit from. They weren't shown the opportunities available to them within our industry. It sounds counterintuitive, but we believe that by investing in the next generation of integrated workforce analytics, you'll be able to bring that face-to-face communication back into the front line of your organizations. By committing to a platform that really takes career paths and puts them directly into the hands of your frontline associates in such a way that fosters ownership of their careers and highlights the opportunities that otherwise may not be visible to them from the outset, we believe you'll be putting yourself in a position to selectively invest your training and education dollars in such a way that will maximize that return. We believe that those companies who do this now and do it right and implement it right will find themselves with a significant advantage over their competition at the end of the coming decade. So let's take a look at what some of the best retailers are doing right now.
So who are the top companies when it comes to great culture and employee satisfaction? I'm sure everyone here is familiar with Fortune magazine's 100 best companies to work for. Over the last 19 years, this publication has provided the best of the best in terms of great work environments. Now, if we look at this top 100 list, there's only 4 food retailers that have consistently made the list. That would be Wegmans, Publix, Nugget Markets, and Whole Foods. Now, through our research of these 4 companies, the one thing that they all have in common is that they make career transparency and pathing a priority for all employees, and this includes their frontline employees. Now, while they all might not have fully integrated workforce analytics platforms, the one thing they've been able to do is ensure that every employee can clearly see the opportunities ahead of them. Wegmans, for example, instills a philosophy called employees first, customers second. Now, of course, customer service is extremely important to our success, but Wegmans makes it a point to first address the needs of their employees, which further enables them to provide that best-in-class customer service. So what does this do, have this kind of mentality? Well, for Wegmans, it's an average 96.8% on their employee satisfaction rating. And that puts them at a strong number 2 on this list, only behind Google. Now, with only 4 companies represented on this list, we have a huge opportunity to make the necessary investments to not only ensure that this industry becomes a more desirable place to work in, but more importantly, it's to remain relevant to tomorrow's workforce. So today, we have spoken to you about the importance of attracting and retaining tomorrow's top talent. The employment flywheel of the food retailing industry has undoubtedly lost its momentum over the years, as incoming talent fails to see the bigger picture in terms of their career path. And now, faced with the potential disruption from technology and automation, this process is only going to get more difficult. And we all know that people will always be at the heart of driving your organizations forward. The people will always be the building blocks to your corporate cultures. So we must act now. In the words of industry executive Jim Lee, we must begin to start treating our employees like assets rather than expenses. So today, we strongly encourage you to invest in the following areas. 1, integrated workforce analytics. A $240 investment per person per year will get you a fully integrated platform which will seamlessly connect every HR system and make those systems transparent to every employee. Now, this will ensure that your employees have a voice and a sense of control over their careers, but it'll also create efficiencies in managing the whole career pathing process for your companies. Now, a platform like this will give rise to many different avenues within HR management. Well, two of which that we focused on today are one, early talent identification. We must begin to identify this talent early in the process so we can make focused investments on these individuals. And this must start with the frontline employees. And finally, career pathing and transparency. A vision of a potential career path in this industry must be transparent from day one. And this is not only an effort to ensure that we're attracting the best candidates to our industry, but it's to ensure that we are providing the opportunities that are necessary to retain this top talent. Now, all these suggestions we discussed today is really just the starting point in building momentum in this human flywheel. In reality, we are all part of a larger system called the food industry. And if we all put in the incremental focus and attention on the people that matter, then we will collectively be able to propel this great, long-standing industry to new heights. We thank you for your time today, and now we'd like to open it up for questions.
Okay, so I guess then, I don't know how many times I've heard this said, that the millennials graduate with this unrealistic expectation that as soon as they graduate, they're going to just jump right into this super high paying job. So that's really no different than the other generations previously, according to your research, am I right?
According to the research that we found, they haven't changed jobs as frequently as the prior generations of the same phase in their career, and I think what the difference might be there, they want to jump out of the boat and instantly have management over 100 different people. But what we're saying is that through career path and showing them where the checkpoints are and how long they can do that, I think will solve some of those issues because they don't see where they can go or how quickly they can get there, and there's not really a clear roadmap on how to do it that's laid out for them.
Hi. What I understand about the grocery industry is that only about 20% of the people who work in the industry from entry level up to senior executives have a bachelor's degree or higher. So I can see where there's an early talent identification path and a career pathway. But what about the competencies that people are lacking that will help them get to where they want to be? Is there anything in the system that you're aware of that helps people to gain the knowledge, skills, and abilities they need to achieve their career goals?
That's really I believe, one of the key aspects of the integrated system. The idea is that by putting those, it's employee-facing and it's management-facing. So as management, we can look to the future and we can identify, these are all the different skills that we're going to need. We don't know how they're going to fit into particular positions, but essentially we can feed that into the system and say, look, this is a potential path. If you're interested and you want to follow, this path that we lay out, then we could, hopefully guide people along certain paths.
Well, and that's part of the transparency too, is showing those employees that do have that motivation and drive moving forward, what is going to be required of them to obtain those positions. So whether it be a master's degree, a bachelor's degree, they would be able to see that when they start with our companies to ultimately go and further their education if that's the path that they want to take.
Hi, first off, good job on the presentation. I know how nerve-wracking it is, having been up there before. My question to you guys is, do you know of any companies who have invested in this human flywheel, and what kind of statistics that they have as far as success in utilizing this model?
So the closest, oh, go ahead. The closest that we found was actually Amazon. They do play their cards very close to the chest, so specific numbers we weren't able to get, but they utilize this to see who's stalled in their career, where the flight risks are, if they've been, in the same position for what they view as too long, what's holding them back, and how can they develop them along the path into that next level.
Yeah, there's not very many corporations outside the tech industry right now that have actually invested in this technology at this point.